Hello and welcome, dear friends, to another episode of MasterTalk. I hope you're enjoying these wonderful times of change, whether they are intense or not. A lot is happening. Sometimes I think my name is Alexis Sersha, and me too. I'm experiencing all of the things, all of the different energies that come through me, that people are experiencing around me in the mass consciousness. And within that, I'm also experiencing a lot of joy, still a lot of discoveries and a lot of new things. There is this constant going out on journeys that I experience and then coming back to myself. And some of these journeys, there are journeys within the journeys. Some of these journeys can go for a few months, and some of them, can be a day's journey. And how does it feel like to be on a journey? You kind of choose something and then you go out and experience it, and you know that you're sort of like, I know that I'm a little bit away from self, away from being completely in that home. I know that part of me, the focus part, is experiencing the journey, and then it comes back into the self, that part also, and then I experience that joy of being home again within myself, within that delicious, wonderful space. That wonderful space that nothing else can replace for me. There is another layer and level underneath that, if those are the right words, where I experience that nothingness, that I exist, I am that I am. And yet above that there is that gorgeous, incredible space where there's just this gorgeous, warm radiance, this continual radiance from my soul self, that it just goes out to everything. And I can feel it always within me. And I can feel it when I go down deep in myself, or when I expand outward. And what I mean when I expand outward, I don't mean into the physical world, but when I expand inside of myself. And then there comes a point where I can touch that radiance. And that radiance is very subtle, and it's very intense. These kind of words, they don't really make sense anymore in that space. It's more, of course, as I always mention, it's more about the experience. That radiance is always available. Parts of me are not always available to feel it, though. Because if I am in some kind of, let's say, 3D emotions, if those parts of me are in some kind of 3D emotions of guilt, of shame, of all sorts of these kind of things, then those particular parts create barriers within themselves that stops them from feeling that radiance that is always present. And that's all it is. There is such a huge duda, let's say. There's a huge thing made out of enlightenment, out of realization, out of this journey. And then as you're going through it, as you're experiencing it, it's so intense. And sometimes, you feel like, I felt like I've died many times. I've died to the old and been born again. And when you are like that phoenix, you burn. And it is not pleasant to burn. It hurts. It's very full on. And then you are born again anew, fresh. And that journey is so full on, and it takes over your life, perhaps, like lifetimes. And especially, like there's a decade where it's very, very full on. And then when you come out on the other side, you realize that journey was huge. It was huge for that part of yourself that identified itself as a human in this particular lifetime, or any other particular lifetime. But in reality, that journey wasn't huge. And that can also feel in some ways disappointing to the human self, in a way that when that part of you realizes just how much more there is to you, then you see there are journeys within journeys within journeys. And even that realization and the enlightenment and the realization, whatever you want to call it, is not really huge in the scheme of things, because you, the real you, is gigantic beyond words. It goes on forever. It never, there is no end to that part. And it is so brilliant in its creations, how it can create its own individual parts that then go on a lifetime, then go and experience whatever that part of yourself wants to experience. And like when you're looking at another person's life from outside, you can't really tell what their priorities, what their real priorities are, what essence of that life that person wants to experience. And from the outside, it can look like perhaps that another person's life is painful, or you think, wow, why would anyone in their right mind choose that life? But there's that brilliance within that, where they're experiencing, learning, perhaps, like feeling, exploring a part of themselves that it is not open for you, for an onlooker to really be able to see, but it is between them, and it is between them and their soul self. Because there is no life, no lifetime is wasted. It's not pointless. All of them are sacred beyond measure. All of them have a purpose. All of them have connection, even though perhaps it is buried in very, very deep unconsciousness, but it is a huge connection to their soul self. I'm kind of giggling because in the background there is Saint Germain, who is very eager to come and talk with you. So Alex, will go into the background now. Yes, finally. I am that I am, Saint Germain. And dear friends, I am always, always happy to come and talk with you in this way. Because there is no way that you can really perceive this sacredness of your life, of each and every one of your lives, that you are, the being that you are. And the essence, that subtleness that you bring to this game called Earth, each one of you bring this incredible essence of who you are. Not only who you are, but also like a theme for this lifetime of yours that you are living. And so this whole wouldn't be able to be played in the same way if you were not there, here rather. And so I want to portray to you again and again and again just how important each and every one of you are. And how important it is what you are doing. And in these times, there are so many things assaulting you. And I don't mean physically, perhaps, but energetically. And they want to change you, throw you off your course. And now really is the time to take another level, a whole nother level into believing in yourself, into holding on to your true essence, into holding on to all the things that perhaps you have started a few years ago, but perhaps it hasn't gone so well. Perhaps things haven't manifested as what you think, but a lot of this has to do with because you are clearing and clearing and clearing all of those ancient things that were standing in the way. For what you have come here to achieve, and I don't mean that achievement by the standards of the mass consciousness, by the standards of the rest of humanity, but achieve as in essence, as in what you, only you, at your depth of yourself know what you have come to achieve, is monumental for you and your soul. And so there are all these little journeys, of course, that you take. And a lot of it does have to do with you coming clear into your clarity, becoming, like what, sweeping away all that dirt that has come to you via mass consciousness, that dirt that has been passed on to you via the ancestry. And that those things, they may have served and may still serve other people within your ancestral circle. You see, but for what you have come to do and how you've come to do it, they are no longer serving you. And so some of these journeys that you do, you go here and there, you go because you do them because you do need to dive into all of these things that are still stopping you from that 100% belief, trust in yourself. And not only in yourself, but also in disabilities, and also that the new earth is real, and that all these new things that you can do, that you can develop, are real, that you can bring them into your reality. You see, we talk for many times. We talk, well, not many times, and year after year after year, we talk a lot about certain things. Why can't you instantly manifest? Why do you still experience things that from your mind's perspective, from your human's perspective, you feel like, I shouldn't be experiencing this. This is not what I chose. And this is the reason why. It is because you are clearing all of those patterns. You're clearing all of those things. And have you not had as many lifetimes? Have you not been so dedicated? Have you not been so passionate about this experience called Earth? You would not have dived so deeply into things. You would not have given of yourself so 100%ly, and you would not have so much to clear. But because this playground of Earth includes the whole array, the whole range of experiences, from the most intense, even beastly in a way, to the most beautiful, most loving, most gentle, and everything in between. And so now you are sifting through what is still relevant, what is not relevant. There are some things that are 100% not relevant anymore because they purely operate from that perspective of separation. And some of the things you hold on to very tightly, you hold on and you hold on and you go on a journey, and again and again and again, and you haven't really let them go. You play this kind of game with yourself where you say, part of you says to self, to the greater self, yes, I'm willing to let this go now. And yet you try to hide this one little thing, one little tiny thing. And you're seeing this new way, the tiny thing, the tiny thread with which you are still holding to the old thing is huge. There is, because in this space, there is no big and no small, really, so to speak. And so it can be the tiniest thread, but with that, you're still holding on to that whole experience that you're not wanting to let go of. And I'm saying this not because of some kind of blame. I'm saying this just to bring a little bit of light to the situations, that perhaps some of the frustrations that you're experiencing. And don't think you are alone in this. For remember, you are a master already, even though perhaps you don't realize it 100% all the whole time. And so these things are quite challenging. These things do require people like yourselves, beings like yourselves. For not everyone can experience this. Not everyone can extricate themselves from such depth of experience. Not everyone can. And that is why, too, We, your non-physical friends, are asking each one of you to continue to stay. Because you see, you look upon the sea of humanity, you look upon individuals within that word humanity, and you see how desperately they are stuck. And so you are here to radiate. And sometimes we hear you say, but dear Saint Germain, they have as many tools as we've had. They can awaken, they can realize, they can become enlightened. And I say to you exactly that. Not everyone is so proficient at this, but they can become. And not only they can become, but of course, you have made it much easier with the templates that you are creating, with the templates that you are continually feeding into the mass consciousness, so that they have become available to everyone else. For you see, each one of you, when every time that you're experiencing a win, so to speak, a win, where you have integrated, where you have been able to let go, where you have been able to move on, where you have been able to love a part of yourself never loved before. You see, these are the kind of templates, the kind of potentials that you're feeding into the mass consciousness. Mass consciousness never has contained this kind of things before. Yes, there were individuals that have experienced their realization before, but there were so few in the scheme of things that it didn't make such a huge dent within this conglomerate, this blob, this creation called mass consciousness. And now with so many of you, you can see the changes every day in people. You can see the changes in the individuals, how they are so clicking, they're so on top of these things, especially the younger generations. They start at a whole different level than where you started, with regards to the energetic understanding, with regards to understanding these things and the abilities and how easily they let things go. You see how younger people, they're not so stuck to a particular place, to a particular identification, to a particular name or locations or persons or anything. They're much more flexible, much more fluid in a way that they move, in a way that they change, and also in the audacity that they have with which they claim things to be theirs. You see, they don't feel like, okay, I'm going to go and have a job and work for 40 years so that I can become a manager. That's not their way, because they know their value. They know their abilities, and they're using much more of their what used to be unconscious. And so they are able to be managers, good managers at a very young age. And you think sometimes, you wonder, how can that be? Where do they get this talent? It is because of you. Because of you, because you have changed the energy, that thick energy that earth used to be. You have changed it, and within this now, there is this movement, fluidity. There is this ability of change. And I can hear some of you say, so we are now in September 2021. There are a lot of things happening which look like they're going backwards. Yes, there is a lot happening within mass consciousness to do with masculine and feminine. There are things happening in certain countries. There are things happening all over where the old seems to be creeping back. But fret not, because this is its last try. It is its last try to rear its head and wanting to pull things back into the old. But this is not an overnight thing. As you can see, we've gone together, because I have walked with you together in these decades of this life. We have walked through watching humanity change, and they were watching people like yourselves that were so flowery-eyed, had rose-colored glasses on, and you thought, remember yourself a decade or 2 decades ago when you thought that, oh wow, in 2012 something will happen, everything will change, new earth will be here. You see, and there are still people that do believe that. There are still people that have those kind of glasses on. Maybe next year, maybe when another portal happens, the 8-8, there is year after year after year at that time. You have all these articles, yes, we go through the portal and then the humanity ascends. Year after year, same thing, repeat. But now you know that it is not that easy in this way, that everyone will just ascend. Of course, you have changed the energy. Of course, you have created something completely different. You have fertilized the fields, so to speak, where things can grow. But each person has to plant them themselves. You know that now. And you also know, to your sadness, and some of you have quite deep sadness with this, you also know that some will not choose love, that some will not choose sovereignty, that some will not choose independence in this way, realization. Some have no interest in changing. Some have no interest, or perhaps they do to a certain extent to make their life a little bit better. But you know that perhaps now it's even apparent that majority have decided that they don't have this heart as you have to go all the way. They will perhaps in a next lifetime. But for many of you, this is the last lifetime in this way. And so it continues to be important for each one of you to go all the way within yourself. For if you have chosen this to be the last lifetime, then you do need to let go of things 100%. You see, you can't have those little tiny threads like that fishing line. You know, it's very thin, very tiny, a see-through like glass, and yet extremely strong. You can't use those and hope that your soul self or whoever decides about these things won't see that you're still using that to hold on to things. But it is your choice, you see. It is not that there is some kind of rule somewhere, how you go and how far you go with this, or whether this is your last lifetime in this way or not. It is you who decides. And for many of you, you sort of get a little bit lost in kind of contemplation of, wow, wouldn't it be nice to still enjoy another lifetime perhaps when I am awakened from a young age? And dear ones, you always have a choice. You don't even have to ponder or worry about something that will happen 20, 30, 40, a choice that will come available to you in 30, 40 years' time or 10 years' time, you see, because at that time you will have 100% choice and you will choose based on what your passions are, what your desires, what you want to choose at that time. You don't have to worry about the day for when it will come. For that day when it comes, you will have everything at your disposal to make the choice then. So again, come back to now, come back to this time, come back to making this life here enjoyable to yourself, enjoyable as it is, and not worry about the choices that you will make. in 10 years' time. And so, but if you are on that path when it is this last lifetime, then you do have to let most all of the old things go 100%. 100% you let go of the attachment to humanity. 100% you let go of the attachment to your family. 100% you let go of the attachment of anything old. And when you haven't, if you have made that choice, you will know what is going on when these things come up for the release. And that is not easy, my friends. And I see very often when people choose and then unchoose and choose and unchoose. Because when you come to that point where you actually really have to let go, you step back, you say, no, this I can't let go. But you see, dear friends, it is in many ways, it is just really an illusion that you are letting go, because it feels you're letting go of family, for example. But what you gain, you see, in the new way, you just gain more freedom in a relationship to that. So you see, it's not that you will never experience those people, those beings again, for remember, you are all eternal. Each one of you is eternal. So how can you not? How can you see, this idea of how you perceive these things, you can still sometimes see it from that limited human perspective, where the human says, wow, if someone dies, they don't come back ever. See, but this is not the case. And you are all of you, eternal. When you cross that veil that separates the two worlds, and you cross it while you're still being very much alive, and you realize that death doesn't exist. When you realize that, then so much becomes available to you. But what you have had to let go of, 100%, no little strings, strong fishing strings that you think are invisible. You have to let go of all the old beliefs. And that's what you are letting go of. You see, when you say, okay, I'm letting go of family, I'm letting go of humanity, I'm letting go of all these things, you are just letting go of the old way of relating to that. And in this new way, like we talked about before, that when that day comes, when you have this full-on real choice in a new way, with all of your new abilities, with new awarenesses, with new perceptions, with much more of you present in that choice, then you choose from a different perspective as to what you do. And this is all it is. You see, it is really a game, a very real game. It can be, a very painful game, and yet within yourself, of a whole self, from a soul, it is but a journey, it is but an experience. And all of those loves that you have to what you love, you don't really let go of that. You just let go of the old way of relating to that, of the old way of being with that love. And that's all it is. And yet to the human self, it does perceive it as if it is dying, you see. They're like the phoenix. It is not easy to burn, but it is glorious to then be born anew, you see. It is glorious to be fresh. It is glorious to be new, free, like an innocent baby that you hold for the first time in your life. It doesn't feel like it has any attachments to the old. It feels fresh and new, full of potentials. You see, this is what being born anew over and over and over it feels like. And we are talking about this, you see, as if it is a game in a way. As I mentioned, it is. But when you can really do these kind of things with ease and grace, when you can let go completely, when you can transform completely, when you can let the old burn completely, this is real mastery. It's not a perhaps I was going to say a joke, but it's not the right word, because only a master, a master, a high level can do these things gracefully and easily. For remember, people still stuck in a mass consciousness, even but to let go of one thing, how hard it is and how impossible it is for that. And many never do. And you can see that when generation upon generation upon generation keep perpetuating the same thing, the same pain, the same suffering for no reason at all, but because they can't let go. That process of letting go 100%, they don't have that down pat, you see. So these things of mastery, like we can talk about them casually, but to actually live them, they sort of sound very casual. Oh yeah, I can let go of this and that. But the real letting go, the real dying to the old, being born anew, this is it. You see, these are huge abilities to do, to be able to have. Because when you can do that, then the world is your oyster. The world, you can go deeply into any experience that you want, and you can extricate yourself with ease and grace. You can choose when you go in, and you can choose when you go out. When the game, whatever journey that you're on has played itself, you just know how to let go of what needs to let go, to die to that game, to die to that journey, and be born again into some freshness and be ready for something new. And there are these journeys upon journeys upon journeys within. You see, it's not like just the one thing. There are many, because you are multidimensional. And all of these things also, we've been talking about them for lifetimes. We've been talking about, all of these ancient books. In their own way, they talk about these things because they are huge to master. You see, very many often would like all sorts of fancy words and all sorts of these different things, but they haven't mastered the basics. And it is these basics, even though they may feel like they have, because they've been talked about over and over and over, and perhaps they talk about them, but when it comes down to it, you see they haven't mastered them, and so they are not free. They seem basic, they seem commonplace, rather, not basic, commonplace, easy, and yet they are huge. And so have a look and see throughout your day when you can practice this kind of mastery in bigger and little ways. Because then you see all of these things that come at you from the mass consciousness. They can't really, there is nothing that they can attach themselves within you. They just flow through you. And some of them are extremely, extremely uncomfortable, but they just flow through you because you know how to let go. You know how to be compassionate. You know how to let things just be. And so they don't get stuck, not in your body, not in your psyche. They just flow and go to where they came from, in the circle back to whomever created them. See, you don't have to take, and this is how you move in this world, with ease and grace and ease and grace. And for some, ease and grace seem like there are something very hard that it's not possible in your life. Look at those little fishing lines with which you are holding things onto still, and let them, cut them loose, and then see how ease and grace happen, because those fishing lines means that you are holding, you're dragging these huge burdens behind you, like it's this image of a person on this road, and you've got these things dragging behind you, huge rocks and stones still tied to you. Yes, you made more space between them and you, perhaps, but they need to be cut off. They need to be let go of completely. And yes, that letting go of completely requires 100% of trust. 100% of trust. And that as you do it over and over and over, it becomes a habit. It becomes a way of how you live. Trust in yourself, in that essence of who you are, in that incredible, beautiful essence of who you are. And so as these things no longer burden you, you can then see this, explore the ease and grace of who you are. And then you can feel that gorgeous, incredible radiance of you just radiating out. Feel it, radiating first all over yourself, into every part of you, every part, and then out into the world. For there is no end to this radiance. And there is no beginning into this radiance. It just radiates and radiates and radiates. And you can bask in its delicious warmth, in its delicious nutrition, that it envelops you, that it hugs you, that it loves every part of you on the inside and outside. And then you can look at the world horizontal world that you have created, the world that you continually create, with the eyes of love. Your eyes then radiate this love out to everything that you look upon, and everything that you look upon then basks in this radiance also, and looks at you back with the eyes of love. And if that is not an orgasmic experience, dear friends, what is? And so we come to the end of this session today. We have discussed, we have experienced what we wanted to experience for today. And so I, Saint Germain, greet you. And I walk with you. And yesterday, I was not the self that you often know, loud and jovial and jokey. Today it was time for the gentleness, for the gentle Saint Germain, for the love, for the gentleness that permeates you, permeates the world as you radiate that out into the world through all of yourself. And so, dear friends, until next time, see you.